Welcome to the program. I am Omini Odan. Nigeria has commenced full deregulation of the downstream oil sector when, on the 5th of September 2020, the Petroleum Product Marketing Company (PPMC) announced increase in petrol price of 151.56 to 62 naira a litre and directed all operators in the petrol retail business to comply immediately. The development was hinged on the deregulation of the downstream petroleum sector based on demand and supply chain on petroleum products. The new price is aimed at improving product availability, attract investment, create employment opportunities along the line and save capital flight needed in development of several critical infrastructure in Nigeria. From 2006, for example, to 2018, Nigerian government committed an estimated amount of over 10 trillion naira for payment of subsidy. Perhaps this informed the decision of the government to put to an end the wasteful importation and even ended the sole importer status of the NNPC, paving the way for the private marketers to resume importation of petroleum products into the country. However, due to the sensitive and controversial nature of petrol pricing and the nation's polity, the announcement received mixed reactions from the public and the labor unions. But the challenge remains the timing against the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic and its devastating consequence on the economy and the people. But before then, let's take a listen to this background report put together by Lydia Sampson.
A Nigerian wants to drive in and out of a petrol station with fuel in his or her car without any stress, and now the present administration had made it possible for Nigerians to live that dream without spending endless productive hours in search of petrol or in fuel queues. However, COVID-19 brought global economies to their knees, with global crude prices plummeting to the lowest ever. Nigeria, like all oil-producing nations, are battling to stay afloat.
COVID-19 has brought the world economy to its knees, and the Nigerian economy is lying flat on its stomach, but we will prevail.
Is the realization that we shouldn't be doing this in the short term, because Mr. President is very clear about his concern for the ordinary people. There's a desire to make sure that value is delivered to this country and to the ordinary people in particular. There's a desire to deliver on infrastructure, medical services, education, and so many things that we're all aware of. He's very passionate about it. But you can't do this if you don't have the right resources. You cannot do this when there's an imbalance of an economic environment that promotes the support for consumption rather than production.
In order for the economy to survive, the government therefore took a difficult but necessary step to deregulate the petroleum downstream. This is to ensure that Nigerians continue to have product availability across the country. But now prices are determined by market forces.
The market will open up. We should be exporting this refined product. We have about 4 refineries. Now that the thing is now going into private hand, you will see that pretty soon people will begin to enjoy cheaper energy, oil and gas. The gas sector is about to blossom and it will change the narrative.
According to oil and gas experts, deregulation brings many advantages to businesses. This is more so that deregulation in an emerging market economy also means that the state is at last given full play to market forces as opposed to centralized planning. These experts says result in greater efficiency for the businesses and more profit as well. This also means that businesses can launch new products, set prices according to demand and supply, and expand into newer territories. Already, private refineries and modular refineries are in the pipeline with more private sector participants.
But with this deregulation, a lot of private sector driven companies will come on board. Pretty soon now, Dangote will be on stream. Last 2 weeks, they opened up one in Imo State, Walter Smith. Ezekiel is coming up in Bayelsa. Bua is also setting up something in Akwa Ibom. Ipman is also putting their ass together to see that we flag off in Kogi.
The government says it is not unmindful of the short-term difficulty Nigerians face. To cushion the effect of deregulation, the federal government, in addition to palliatives, also introduced auto gas, an alternative fuel to petrol, with a pilot scheme already working in Benin and Rivers. The policy introduced the conversion of cars to dual fuel drives. Following the federal government's local content policy, an indigenous company is spearheading this transformation.
So this is petrol. The first one is switches to petrol. The first one is switches to gas.
While calling for patience and understanding, key players are optimistic that with the deregulation, Nigeria's oil and gas will start another phase of viability that will not just attract investors but create massive employment across the value chain. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
Deregulation, subsidy and fair pricing in Nigeria is the focus of Tuesday Live tonight. It's Tuesday Live. At some point, our phone lines will be open, and if we're true to you, please, in making your contribution, turn down the volume of your television set or avoid the hallback, and in doing this, also go straight to the point and avoid rigmaroling. Also, you can be part of the discussion tonight through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. And also, in sustaining the conversation tonight, we shall be dotting some reports across the landscape of the country, all to give verve to what this deregulation is all about. Welcome to the program once again, and I have a team of guests here, beginning with Oluwole Osage Jacobs. Oluwole Osage Jacobs is an economist and chartered accountant, fellow Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, managing partner, hybrid fin consultants, financial and management consultant. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
You are welcome.
Also tonight is Tajuddin Akonde. Tajuddin Akonde is a fellow, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, fellow, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, director, Africa Regional Board of PKF International Network, accounting graduate, University of Benin, holds Masters in Finance, University of Leicester, and Harvard Business School. Welcome to the program, Akonde.
Much. Good evening.
Also tonight on Tuesday Live, we have Taiwo Oyedele. Taiwo Oyedele is Fiscal Policy Partner, West Africa Tax Leader at PwC, Chartered Accountant and Fiscal Economist, Thematic Lead for the Public Finance and Taxation Policy Commission of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. Good to see you on the program tonight.
Having me.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin. So much hue and cry regarding deregulation of the downstream sector in Nigeria. And the question, when you listen to reports, either for or against, one thing is very, very firm, that 63 years after the discovery of crude oil in Nigeria, the downstream sector is still evolving, meaning something seriously to be done. So what's the big deal, and can you do a breakdown of this deregulation so we can get it clearer?
Deregulation is the removal of legal and governmental control on a business to allow for competitiveness. If it is not competitive, it will not be correctly priced. And once it's not correctly priced, the burden will be pushed to the poor. And what many people don't know is that it will benefit the masses of this country. And I thank the president for being bold enough, because many people have tried it and failed, but he was bold enough to initiate this and to put it in process. And I pray that God will assist him to succeed. And many people blame him because they don't know what it is. In the long run, we will all smile. Once there's no regulation, there will be monopoly. Like the NNPC, they monopolize everything. When you monopolize, you dictate the price. You do anything you like. There's no control. And at that time, even in sourcing for foreign exchange, if in sourcing foreign exchange, they have an advantage over others. You see, the small players, they have to withdraw. And if you don't deregulate, it will continue. Like, look at our refineries. 4 refineries failing. 230 billion loss in a year. And Kaduna Refinery has not worked for 2 years. And since 1950, for 53 years, since 1956, it's 54 years, we are still where we are. Iran, they've taken over their industry, taking control, full control of their industry, and they are running it successfully. If you don't deregulate, there will be few players in the market. And when there's few players in the market, what? They dictate the price. There will be inefficiency. There will be inefficiency. So first of all, what the government has done is very good. Timothy Silva, the Minister of State for Petroleum, told us, we were very happy, in his address to the nation, said NNPC will not be the sole buyer and seller of petroleum products. And we're very happy that he did that. If you don't do that, we'll pay for it. What we are having now, you have different prices for petrol. So each importer can import and sell at a price that is convenient, that will give him profit. We give him profit. If it's too high, it will be controlled because many people will come in. Demand and supply will come in. The invisible hand of Alfred Marshall will come into place. It will normalize the prices and it will be affordable by all. Everybody can afford it. So in the long run, what I just say is that Nigerians should be very patient. We want to bring in more people into the market, into the business. More players will come to the market and price will be regulated. If not, it will be very difficult for us to sustain subsidy. We spend trillions of naira every year to subsidize, and it allows for fraudulent practices, hoarding. Many people just submit papers whereas they did not import anything, and you pay them subsidy. The petroleum industry bill is still in the House of Assembly. It has not been passed. It has not been passed. It's still there. I don't know what is happening. It will have taken care of all these things. But what the president has done is very good. What he has done is very good, and we should be happy with it.
Okay, before we go to Akonde and Oyedele, let me just ask you one thing. Why would I, as the Nigerian on the streets, close my ears and listen more to government than what the people you term selfish persons?
Yes.
Why should I do that?
That you should.
Why should I leave those ones you term selfish people and listen more to government?
You listen more to government because they are the one giving you the policy. And it's your duty to inform the people. There must be information management. It must be properly managed to sensitize the people, to tell the people the pros and cons. There are disadvantages of the regulation, but very few. But at the end, we will all be better for it. So now, when you sensitize people and you tell them, people, they were not informed. I was in a place, they were blaming Buhari. What has been already done? And I discussed with a group of people. They understood. In the long run, it will benefit because more people will come into the market. Once people control, what will happen? They hold the supply. And when it is not completely supplied, you are now creating what is called a monopolist. A monopolist, what? It fixes the price that he likes. Okay.
Let's go to Akonde. Tajuddin Akonde, 63 years on, when crude oil was discovered in Nigeria, the downstream sector is still evolving, whereas you have claims that crude was discovered much later. Their downstream sector has stabilized. We still have issues of petroleum products pricing, issues of storage, issues of marketing, name it. So, can you elucidate more why we should flow with the direction we are going?
Much, and of course, you are right. It's 63 years we've been in this business, and we seems to be, dancing around in circles. When you look at the journey, the question is, and that is the question you have asked me, why did we find ourselves where we are today? You look at our experience with fuel, with other products, other services that government controls. The issue with government control or government regulation has to do with efficiency. The problem in the industry is inefficiency, and we know that every industry, every parastatal, every project, in most cases where there is no competition, the chances are that there will be complacency. Ordinarily, even when you have private monopoly, where there is no competition, the customers are not likely to have the best deal. When that monopoly is the government, they make the rule, they are also the one to obey those rules. We have the experience not only in the downstream. Look at everything that we have managed through government ownership and control. The railways, look at the history of telecommunication services prior to the deregulation of telecommunication. How many people in Nigeria today remember there was something called Niger? Right. And look at also our experience with power, electricity. If you ask many Nigerians on the street today, of course, they will respond that they will have preferred it different from what we're experiencing now. So the basic problem with that sector is the problem of inability of the operators to operate efficiently. The issue of deregulation, there are objectives. One of the objectives is create competition that will remove inefficiency. The other objective is once there are many players in a market, right, the chances are that everybody is striving to get the best. Even when you think of, okay, these are private businesses and their objective is profit. The truth is you are not going to get that patronage if you are not giving the consumers what they want. And that would necessarily lead to growth in the industry when you remove that restriction which government control will put in an industry that is not regulated. That is why we are where we are today, I believe so.
Okay. Ayodele, now let me ask you this differently. You heard what Akonde just said. Now, I heard one of the respondents in the background talk about cheaper fuel and all that. So imagine in the long run, Nigerians are enjoying cheaper products, more players come to the industry, and the taxation regime is boosted. How will it look like?
Thank you very much. I think just to be clear, so what we are talking about would not necessarily mean that the price will be cheaper than it is during the price regulation regime, because the price of petroleum products is determined largely based on international price of petroleum products, the crude oil itself, refining, and so many other factors. So it's not likely to be less than, say, the 145 that it was before, unless if the price of crude oil per barrel goes down significantly, which is not what we are praying for. But what the issue is that Nigerians need to even first and foremost understand what we're talking about, in the sense that if you think about it, during the Obasanjo regime, we got, debt forgiveness. We were almost debt-free as a country. So today our debt portfolio is around $80 billion, or if you like, you say about 28 trillion naira. And the amount of money we've spent subsidizing petroleum products over the past 15 years is easily more than 10 trillion naira. And this 10 trillion naira is more than the amount we've spent in the same period of time on education, on healthcare, and even infrastructure combined. And for all of these years as well that we're subsidizing petroleum products, we were borrowing. And in many of those years, government was borrowing at double digits, as high as 18%. So if you do the mathematics, you can easily conclude today that the entire debt portfolio we have as a country would not have been there if we didn't have fuel subsidy in the past, say, 15 years, or maybe the beginning of this democratic dispensation. So what that means is as a country, do we want to borrow to subsidize petrol? Given that in Q1 of this year, according to the Debt Management Office, the federal government spent 99.2% of its revenue to service debt. So we are accumulating debt to subsidize petroleum products, and it's even more painful that this subsidy is not going to the poorest people in our society. We need to remind our viewers that diesel is already deregulated, kerosene is already deregulated, lubricants, all the other products are already deregulated. And the poorest people in society go on mass transit buses. So in Lagos, for example, we call that Molue. Molue is on diesel, so which means they are not being subsidized. If you talk about intercity transport, or you talk about trucks that we use to carry a lot of produce from the farm, they use diesel, and diesel is already deregulated. The poor man, the poor woman in the village who manages to buy a stove and is cooking and using kerosene is paying market price because it is not subsidized. So who is enjoying this subsidy? It is mostly the middle class, the people who have many cars, the transporters, because what tends to happen is when price goes down, and for me it was disappointing that when the price of petrol was reduced to even around 123 naira per liter, transport fare did not go down. So which means the people who enjoyed the benefits were the middle class who had those vehicles as transporters. But as soon as the price went up a little bit, many people take advantage of that to exploit Nigerians. So we also need to be honest with ourselves to say that this is an issue that we have to all contribute towards making it work effectively for the benefit of everyone. If we deregulate the price of petrol and we allow market forces to drive the price, even though the price may not be lower, but what will happen is we'll create economic activities. We'll start refining products. We're able to sell it. We can create employment. Today, the largest item on which we spend foreign exchange is importing refined products. So that puts pressure on our foreign reserve. And that's one of the reasons why Naira is depreciating against foreign currencies, particularly the US dollars. We're doing some analysis recently under the African Continental Free Trade Area, and we look at the top 10 economies in Africa, and we're looking at what is it that they are importing. It turns out that 8 out of the top 10 economies in Africa, the number one item they are importing is refined products. Why is Nigeria not refining all of our 2 million barrels per day and exporting the refined product to the rest of Africa after meeting our local demand? That way, not only will we create economic prosperity, employment for our people, we have foreign reserve to be able to preserve and defend the Naira. So in many ways, I think that this is a difficult time to ask anybody to pay even 1 Naira more than they need to pay. But the reality also is that, when you have a crisis, they say do not waste a crisis. It's also the time to make tough decisions. Sometimes it's painful, but I think it's necessary for the long-term benefits of our country.
Oyedele, if we're set, our first set of reports are ready, we'll take them and we'll continue the conversation. And the first one report is coming from Lagos.
And gas sector at the moment is that of deregulation. This is especially as the federal government is working to overcome the challenges of shortfall in revenue accruing to the government in the petroleum subsector and to boost the nation's economy.
You can observe that there is disparity in the pump price from one filling station to the other. So it depends on you. So the situation where you can still the real customers are king is what the regulation will foster.
It's so clear, it's so obvious. If we do this like we should do it, then the benefit will come to Nigerians, to Nigeria, and to the industry itself.
Interestingly, These energy experts say the step has created the needed awareness for the industry players to start thinking about the future of the industry from a deregulated perspective and brace up to the challenges of delivering quality service in an almost moribund sector of the industry.
This is what they were waiting for. We have had presentations by refineries who are promoters who are good to go. I'm not talking just about the Dangote refinery, which we all know about. We heard a few days ago that there's a Bua refinery. We heard that there are other modular refineries. There are refineries that are ready to start up. Those refineries will produce products that will go to not just to Nigeria, but to the rest of Africa.
These energy experts were also quick to point out that with transparency from all parties involved, Nigeria will be on her way to becoming a world-class petroleum refining nation with increase in investment, foreign exchange and job creation.
Our next report in sustaining the conversation tonight is coming from Port Harcourt.
Following the removal of the fuel subsidy by the federal government, the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory
Sorry for the abrupt end of that report. Quickly, Osage. Now, let's leave the people on the streets and come to the players in the industry. What prospects for the players in the industry if all this works the way it should work, all things being well?
The Professor George Stigler, he won the Nobel Prize in 1982. He worked on industries and utilities, on the effect of the regulation on utilities and industries, and he came with his report. It was a very great report which assisted the American government. So when NNPC is unbundled, you now have various players coming to play in the market. There will be very many, and there will be competition. When there's competition, efficiency will rise. When there's efficiency, productivity will rise. And what will happen? There will be greater employment of the people. And with that competition, with the efficiency, the standard of living of the people will be enhanced. So my fear is, we are talking of refineries. People coming in to import, I don't think it's proper. It's not the thing the way we should be looking at it. You just come in and import. The same thing, the state status quo still remains. Refineries are failing. Why did they fail for so many years? Because of technology. That deficit in that technology, that is the reason. And I will tell you that during the war, the Biafra, the RAF group, under Professor Ejekwe, Nnadi, Bichere, at Obuduku, in a village very close, not Obuluku, Obuduku is a village in Anambra State, very close to Delta. In a primary school on the field, Obuduku was there, they built a refinery from scraps from Port Harcourt and Aba. And the refinery worked throughout. They may lack anything. They lack food, they lack everything in the industry, they lack drugs, they lack facilities, but they never lack fuel. So once the industry players are coming just to import and sell, it will not help us. So we want people like Dangote to come in, to be refineries. There's one modular refinery in Benin now, and as my partners have said, it will spring out in all the places. So with that, the industries will be, their productivity will be enhanced. With that technology, they will bring in technology. Because the energy was so big, but now it will not be in small. Because in 40 years, we will lose this oil. We have 40 billion barrels. In 40 years, are 2 million barrels per day. In 40 years, everything will be exhausted. And we are still using this internal combustion engine. That is why we are happy. There's electric cars coming. In few years, everything we are talking about, we will not say it again because the world is moving at a frantic pace. So the industry, those who are coming in, we benefit because that is if the government provides the enabling environment for them to succeed. If not, all of them will come in, some people will still dominate. they will combine and form monopoly. Look at what happened in the banks. It was unbundled. Government withdrew its shares from banks. Other banks came in. Many banks came in. What? They started merging for power. It's the same thing in accounting. Accounting firms, the big four. Many firms now merge. What? To have start bringing the monopoly with the test. They bring the monopoly with the test. So now, that Stigler said he worked, and this man, Stigler and Stiglitz too, he was the economic advisor to the World Bank. He was talking, they were the people who developed information economics. That there's what is called asymmetrical information. If you are in an industry, you are playing in an industry. It's an open field. If you are more informed than me, I will dominate. If I'm more informed than you, I will dominate the market. Just take an insurance broker selling insurance policies to you. He's more informed than you on that insurance policy. Or somebody selling second-hand vehicles to you. He's more informed than you. So normally you say, what is a perfect market? Free entry, free exit. Yes, government should not regulate the market. The market should fix the prices. But they are now saying, no, that perfect market may still be inefficient if there is no free flow information. If information is to the exclusive benefit of a few of them, they will come together, merge, and form further monopoly. And when they do that, they combine and fix the price, and you cannot run away from it. So it will be beneficial to them because, if government regulates, so the regulation should not be total. There should be monitoring of the thing until they nurture it to a state of perfection. Okay. If they don't nurture it, they just leave it. Dangote will it's so big. What will happen? It will reduce the price and drive all of you out of the place. It will reduce it because he has bigger capacity. He can sell, because this fuel you see, even in petrol station, the profit is very low. What they make on a liter is very low. So a big player can dominate the market. It will reduce the price. He has the facility, he will reduce the price and drive you out of the market. So government should encourage, and our banks should now assist to advance loans to these refineries and let them stand. If not, there will be few players. At the end of it, they will not combine because the shareholders want profit at the end of the year. You cannot say because you want to stand alone. No, you have to do.
So when this happens, does that then mean what is supposed to play out will not play out?
What?
If this happens,
it will not play out. Okay. When monopolies are created by deregulation. Okay. It will not happen.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Yes. Now, if you can be part of the conversation tonight through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA and also through our phone number that is displayed on the screen. The report from Port Harcourt that went off abruptly is ready now. We'll take it, and when we return, we'll go straight to Akonde and Oyedele.
Following the removal of the fuel subsidy by the federal government, the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency was saddled with the responsibility to advise the NNPC and oil marketers on guiding price at which petrol will be sold across the country. The deregulation of the petroleum downstream sector, which gave rise to the fluctuations in the pump price of fuel, has attracted diverse views on the new regime and its attendant effects.
When you deregulate, it means that private hands will come in. Monopoly will be killed. Infrastructures will be made available, just like we see in telecommunication and all that. There are a lot of benefits that accrue to deregulation. When that is done, this issue of price hike will not even be there. A lot of things, a situation where somebody will be the determinant of the price of the product shouldn't be there. More refineries will be built, and you begin to see employment being generated.
Despite the benefits inherent in the removal of the fuel subsidy, Nigerians in Port Harcourt, who are still grappling with the effect of COVID-19, lament the economic impact of the policy on other sectors.
Would they buy for 160? We think that the passenger money will only account to give the honor money they come out for us. So would have made the country, our government made them check it to this matter, put them in order for us.
No, because if you continue carrying 33 passengers and now fuel is 165 naira, how can we meet up?
I went to Abia State now to get this bet. If it was before, I pay 7,000 naira just to go to nearby state, but now you pay 15, 12, 11,000 just to travel outside the state.
Things are high. Well, the way they take by, and now it's not the same.
With the long-run economic impact of the deregulation on the citizens, it is hoped that government consider the plight of the people and do the needful.
We've heard so much about borrowing to subsidize the prospects for the local industry players. And now let's look at it. If there is dominance, participation increases, employment generation, name it, it means the market is huge. What would be the place of regulation? So, Akonde, if it is not properly regulated, what happens? If it is properly regulated, what happens?
Of course, we all know that there is no economic policy or economy that is completely free in the hand of market forces. Just, the way you don't want to control everything, it will be irresponsible for government to allow players to play with no rules. If we on a football pitch, there are rules. That's why you have the referee, you have the assistants, and today you have the VAR. So there will be regulation in terms of guideline to guide the operators as to what they should do, what they can do, and if they are going outside the latitude which has been provided for them to maneuver, the role of the regulator is to call them to check. Take the banking industry. I mean, the central bank is there to give the monetary policy and check compliance and call the banks to order if they are stepping out of the rules that has been set by government. In the capital market, there is the Securities and Exchange Commission. In the telecommunication, there is the NCC. In insurance, there is NICOM. In pension, there is PENCOM. So it cannot be free for all and no control. Control I'm talking about is not government dictating every move, fixing prices and all that. Control in the sense that the duty of government is, or the regulatory agency that will be in charge of this sector, will be to ensure that the rules of play in this market is followed by the operators. I don't want us to talk about, it will be beneficial, the prices will come down in the long run and all that. Let's face facts. In the short term, of course, there are going to be consequences in terms of hardship to Nigerians. The other issue is subsidy in itself, ordinarily, is not a totally bad thing. There is no economy or government in the world where there are some form of subsidy or the other. It has to be targeted at where it will be more impactful in terms of impact on the lives of the citizen. I mean, my colleague spoke about how many years we have been in this, 63 years. What are we doing now? Who is benefiting, borrowing to subsidize petrol? The government has said we are spending an average of 1 trillion every year to subsidize petrol. Every other product that is coming out of the industry are already deregulated and people are living with it. For me, I would say in the short term, what can government do to alleviate the immediate impact in terms of suffering for the people? In the long run, even when government saves this money, it doesn't mean that there may not be other sectors that deploying this money that will be saved cannot be impactful to Nigerians. We know the situation in our education sector. We know the situation in our health sector, which the experience we are having with COVID clearly brought out the serious deficiency in the health sector. We know the situation with our infrastructure. So the question for those managing the economy, those managing the government, is to say, hang on, we are borrowing. Where do we have need that it will be more impactful to the people than where we are putting it now? So I don't want Nigerians to think, oh, they're taking out this. What are they going to do with the money after all? There may be other areas, and I will love a situation where government strategically, whatever savings we are going to be making out of this, which according to the Minister of Finance, according to the reports that we have been getting, we are talking of an average of about 1 trillion naira per annum. 10 trillion in the last 14 years or so. So it's about shifting it to other areas, and in the immediate period, during the short term, that this withdrawal, especially coming at this time, because when there are going to be policies, sometimes you say, oh, the time is not right. People are already suffering from the impact of COVID, no unemployment, businesses closing down. And the coming year is likely to be a lot worse than this year, because the impact of the complete lockdown that we had for about 5 years has not come out from business operations, because this will come second, third quarter. By 2021, when businesses begin to release their results, we're going to see the real impact of COVID. Now, people are already contending with that. Now, fuel go up, electricity price going up. The question is, should we just leave it at that and say, oh, you are going to enjoy better price in future? Of course, yes. And I like to analyze by making reference to our experience and examples. When GSM came, about 2000, 2001, I mean, we all bought one SIM card at 30,000 naira. Today, I'm sure most telecommunicators can give you SIM card free. We were making calls per minute when it was just Econet Wireless and NTA, the two that were the first to be licensed and to commence operation. But as soon as other players begin to come into the market, I mean, our per minute billing became per second billing. And now you see a lot of these telecommunication providers not only offering airtime, but are also offering data. So in the downstream petroleum sector, one of the immediate and future expectation is that investment will come into this. Because one of the reasons we have not had investment in that sector is that prospective investors will look at, they will normally, when you are going to invest in any business or any project, you do your analysis and you say what is going to be the returns. With government control and a dictation of what the price should be, any investor in that sector prior to deregulation cannot make the margin that will enable investment. So deregulation means you are creating an environment where investment can come. When investment goes into that sector, of course there will be players that will rush in the first place. Some people will get out or die in that process. Then over time, we are likely to see growth, we are likely to see competition in that sector. But beyond that, I expect that the other sectors of the economy and economic activity, the other areas of our national life that are more or less like an emergency in the hospital today, especially education, health, and the infrastructure that will enable business to be able to operate more efficiently, what we'll be saving from what we are taking out of petroleum subsidy, we can deploy into those areas and begin to see improvement. So in that medium and long term, we expect that Nigerians will find comfort not only in price that competition will drive in the petroleum sector, but in investment in education, in investment in health, in investment in transportation. One of the things that I also expect is consumer behavior is expected to begin to change. For those who have had opportunity to travel out of this country, developed countries, the moment you get to certain jurisdiction, you live in your room, you switch off the light. You go to the toilet, you switch it on, the moment you finish, you switch it off. In Nigeria, most people, you just put on the light. Sometimes they even forget and go to work and come back. The light is on almost all day. At least if you have the light, because we know people will say, do we even have the electricity in the first place? Because of the cost, people will begin to think differently and behave differently. So one of the social impacts is that our behavior will also begin to change. The same thing in terms of moving. We have telecom, and Nigerians like to talk a lot. So we spend a lot of money on telecommunication, talking. At the same time, we spend a lot going to various places, whether it is absolutely necessary or not. You find people take out car and send the driver with another car and send the children with another car. We find people now begin to look at alternative mode of transportation. I hope and I expect that the investment that is presently going to the rail sector, government will sustain that, and we can deliver a more efficient rail transportation where people's emphasis or mode of transportation will shift. I hope and I expect that our cities and states where there are a lot of water, we can begin to think of water transportation so that we reduce the number of cars on the street, the number of buses on the street. If there are buses on the street, rather than the small, 10-seater, 12, 14-seater, we have, mass transit buses that can move people in numbers and maybe are using diesel or alternative source of supply. Let's not forget, I think one of the promises that goes with this deregulation is the fact that government also want to deliberately encourage the use of gas. We have a lot of gas that is being wasted at the moment. I hear that over the next couple of years, government would deliberately encourage people to convert their vehicles to using gas. We know there is a lot of gas that is being wasted in those areas where we have gas reserve and we are producing revenue. So in doing this analysis, I expect that those who have a deeper understanding of the forces at play and the economic and political consideration that goes into this decision will not only paint the one side of it, but we can balance the analysis in terms of the true impact it will have on the people and the assurances of what will cushion that effect in the short term, in the medium term, and what to expect in the long term.
Tajuddin, I had to allow you go the whole haul because you opened so many parcels within the parcel. And now, looking at, you hinged on market behavior, consumer behavior, name it. Let's go to Oyodele. From the perspective of Tajuddin, from the analysis he gave, let's look at it from this angle. A lot said maybe the timeousness of this policy decision by government has been a problem. But we'll ask, when is the best time? Some will say the best time is now. And now, if the decision was not taken now, what would the picture look like? for Nigeria economy maybe in the next 2 years? And also the second leg to the question is, if this happens as it has happened now, will Nigeria be shut up as a global player? What will our space look like? Two issues now.
Right, thank you very much. Let me start with the second question about whether Nigeria will be shut up as a global player. So this is not going to happen. It's so the regulation of petroleum product pricing is a domestic issue. It does not affect our role within the international community. One of the impacts you expect from deregulation and then increase activities and investment in the sector is that because of COVID-19, we saw at a point that there was a glut of petroleum products around the world, or crude oil itself, that even at a point we saw that the Texas crude was even trading at a negative amount. They were going to pay you to just collect the crude from them because they had no storage. We also then had that problem in Nigeria that off-taking was a problem, so we had cargoes and there was nobody willing to buy. Imagine if we were at a point where we could refine all our products. We'd just be refining and exporting refined products to other countries. So I think this would only improve our standing within the international community and not the other way around. To your question, the first question around the timing, whether it is right, should we do it now? Should we have done it before? Should we have waited? I'll say, the best time to make this decision was maybe like 50 years, 40 years ago. The next best time was now. It's always a painful decision if people have to pay a little bit more, particularly given the fact that we have millions and millions of Nigerians who are living in poverty. And the fact that once you remove subsidy, there's the real impact of the subsidy, which in my view is supposed to be very small. And then there's the manipulated impact of the subsidy removal, which is people just exploiting other people. So if you were carrying 10 passengers in your bus, and you're moving a place where you only use about 2 to 4 liters of petrol, the increase we are talking about is about 50 to 60 naira for you. If you divide that by 10 passengers, we're still talking about 10 naira or 5 naira per passenger. But you see, people will then increase it, like we saw in your report. People were already paying 1,000 plus for what they were paying 700 naira for before. So that's not justifiable. But in terms of timing, the question you want to ask is there a time when you remove the subsidy and everybody will go on the street and be celebrating it? It's unlikely. There's no such time that you remove it and it will not involve some level of pain and sacrifices. But whenever you're in a crisis, such as this COVID-19 has demonstrated to us, where we're having to borrow to even pay salaries of civil servants and to take care of the economy, to administer palliative, it is not affordable. We're simply saying we should borrow for our next generation, our children, to come and pay for borrowing to subsidize petroleum products. So in other words, the timing is not perfect, but there's no other time that will be better than now. The reality of the fact is that they say do not waste a crisis. So when you're in a crisis like this, you need to make tough decisions, because that way many people would tend to understand. What we need to focus on as a country is how do we ensure that these savings that we're making, which is at a sacrifice to many of our people. Particularly, I have a lot of sympathy for SMEs. Many of them have small generators here and there to power their businesses, and they use petrol. Their cost of operation will go up. How do we ensure that that sacrifice is worthwhile? Number one is for all of us to say we have to demand transparency of government. We have to demand for accountability. Let it not be that we are saving this money and then we are wasting it through other means. That's number one. Number two is, can we have some legal framework to ensure that the savings is applied productively? For example, we could pass a law that says the amount we could have spent on subsidy, let's say is 1 trillion a year, by law would appropriate that amount and give it to the Sovereign Wealth Fund agency to invest it in infrastructure, to invest in any other productive purposes, and it will be our national savings, so that in another 10 years, God forbid, but these things do happen, if there's another crisis, it may not be COVID, we can simply call on those savings. Plus, you see development that is facilitated by quality infrastructure, whether you're talking about road, whether you're talking about electricity, because the subsidy we are even talking about sometimes I believe is underreported. It's underreported because there are three components to the first subsidy. There's the foreign exchange subsidy, because for a long time we allocated our scarce foreign reserve dollars to the NNPC to import refined products at subsidized rate. That's money belonging to government that we're using to allocate FX at subsidized rates. Number two was the fact that the landing cost, because we're importing the refined product, was more than we were selling it. So there's under recovery, whether you call it under recovery or you call it subsidy at the pump. That was number two. There was also a third component, that is tax. So many countries that do not even produce crude oil make more money from the petroleum sector than some of us who produce crude oil, because in many countries you find things like road taxes, like excise taxes, even VAT on petroleum products, and those amounts are used to develop infrastructure such as road. So you can have good road that allow the farmer in the village to be able to transport their product from the farm into the city, and they don't waste 60% of the tomato they have worked so hard to produce, and so many things. You take development everywhere just by having good road and transportation network. So it is painful. The answer is that the price will not come down anytime soon, and in fact, if the price of crude oil per barrel goes up, this will still go up further. But I just want to remind everyone that we have dealt with this for years. Diesel has been deregulated, the price goes up and down, and a lot of it is absorbed by transporters. A lot of it is absorbed by people who are dealing with those costs without passing it on to the generality of the population. The same thing has to happen with petrol, and everyone who is taking advantage to exploit other people have to just have a rethink, and that's also where government needs to come in. If we think that there are excesses in that regard, government needs to put it in control.
So much, Taiwo. Well, some tweets have come in, and when we come back from taking the next report, we'll take 2 more reports, and when we return, we'll take some tweets and probably some phone calls, and we'll focus on the tax governance and VAT component of deregulation. We'll take the next report coming from Mina.
In Mina, the Niger state capital, have described the removal of the fuel subsidy as a welcome development, which is long overdue.
The government is losing huge amount of trillions naira every year on subsidizing the petroleum product. Let the government put this money on hospital, our roads, our schools, so that people can be able to generate a benefit behind it.
Because of the market force, some people are selling 160, 161, 160.5. There is nothing like scarcity now. Anywhere you pay, you will get it.
They are, however, calling on the government to open up the market for everybody to participate, particularly in the importation and sale of the premium motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, like other petroleum products.
Instead of doing partial deregulation, let the government deregulate the sector completely. Let them allow each and every marketer to go and source this product and bring it to the country.
There are, however, divergent views by a segment of the society in Mina regarding the post-subsidy regime.
It will help the nation economies to improve.
Move out the subsidy that is a welcome idea.
Many people, especially those who are transport food from village to the town, they are suffering.
If it's possible, let it be removed totally.
The vehicle I seen before now, 50,000, now I said 60,000. The price of the fuel we used to go there.
apart from creating room for availability of fuel across the country. Experts are of the opinion that full deregulation of the downstream oil sector will be of more advantage in developing countries such as Nigeria.
Our next report is from Imo.
Petroleum products are classified as special products as their supply has multiplier effects on the socio-economic life of the people. The prices of fuel and diesel will no doubt affect the cost of transportation of goods and services. Therefore, any disruption in the supply of these products results in noticeable outcomes. In Imo State, respondents said the removal of subsidy on petrol has not affected the supply of the product, but however called for sustenance of supply to force down the price.
The sales is driven by demand and supply, and that price index is also a factor. So that's how the business has been affected. The sales dropped.
Others are of the opinion that the deregulation policy has stimulated economic activities. They called on the federal government to sustain the social investment programs to ease the burden of the poor.
That the deregulation is done, the masses are feeling it. Prices of a lot of inputs have gone up because all the few industries in Nigeria all rely on petrol and diesel.
For now, petrol is being sold between 158 naira and 162 naira in most fuel stations in Imo State.
Those are reactions from Mina and Imo. And a couple of tweets came in while the reports were on, and I want to be democratic in it. I'll read out the tweets and allow my team of panelists react 50 minutes to all the tweets at the same time before we sustain the conversation to take our first break. And if you are listening carefully, the first tweet's coming from Victor Lai. It says, I agree with Osage Jacobs that if regulation is not done properly, the few big players would dominate and the objective of deregulation will be defeated. Obasanjo gave license to some private refineries during his time, but the policies of the federal government then did not allow them grow. Olamide Bola. The next tweet from Young Did It says, I still come to think of it in all these years exporting the oil, trading with the money. What will be thinking? Are we thinking exporting the oil was the best thing that will last forever when industries are here not working but sending money to giving away people? That's I read. The last tweet says, coming from Atlasa, Nigerian people want everything free of charge. Vehicle ship and boat owners want government to pay part of their fuel they use for their convenience and business. They even want free electricity and expect good services. So I'll allow my team of gentlemen to react quickly to all the tweets, starting with, let me begin with Tajuddin Akonde this time around.
Who express the fear that there is a possibility of a dominant player in the market that may push away other players and eventually becomes a monopoly that we are running away from. The answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense that there is always a possibility for anything. But no, to the extent that, number one, we have said that, of course, there will be some kind of oversight on the part of regulators as to prevent, things like that from happening. But if we do understand the volume of investment that is needed in that sector, I believe that once the environment has become enabled, there will be other big players, including international players, that will come into the market. It may take some time, because when you open up a market, there is always a time for adjustments. Things will happen, things will adjust. Look at the banking deregulation, for instance. I mean, the licensing regime of the late 80s and early 90s, and the number of banks that came on board. By mid-90s, due to combination of indiscipline, unethical practices, and all sort of things, we find that a lot of the players ran into difficulty, and we had banks that failed. Then we have another regime of trying to sanitize what was happening. The issue of failed bank tribunal, then the Soludo solution, as it was then called, around 2001, 2003. And the latest intervention of about 2009 during the Sanusi era. That is regulatory intervention to prevent, And you find that, yes, some will go, some will march, some will think of other things to do. For as long as the regulators are alive to their responsibility in terms of oversight, I would say, yes, while the fair is there, let's not be jittery. The sector is it's massive. And the potential markets for me may not just be the Nigerian territory. We have a lot of countries that shares border with Nigeria that actually depended on products coming from Nigeria, Republic of Benin, Ghana, Togo, and all that. And once we are able to develop this market and there's robust competition, players will come in, big players will come in, direct foreign investment will come in, and we'll be able to go into all those markets, which will make it even bigger and bigger for investment to come. Investment will not come if we remain captive in the hand of government because we want to run away from, okay, we don't want to remove government monopoly and bring in private monopoly. I think the other gentleman was talking about the issue of the hardship and not just to throw away the savings into some other things. We have said that. And every Nigerian, we must begin to hold our leaders to be accountable by asking questions every time. What are they doing with the resources that has been entrusted into their hand? It's all about accountability. We must all take up our civic responsibility of holding everybody that has put himself or herself up for leadership. Right from the local level, there's a representative in your area, there's a member of the House of Assembly, there's a local government chairman, all through to the National Assembly. We have ministers, they come from somewhere. They have residency in some areas in Nigeria. We must all begin to ask them questions so that government can be on their toes to ensure that they will not just take Nigerians for a ride. This will be my reaction to that.
Thank you so much, Tajuddin. I think I have to hold it there. When we come back after the break, Osage and Oyedele will commence the discussion on the tax governance component of deregulation. We'll take a break.
Up until a few years ago, Nigeria produced far less than it consumed, spending up to $22 billion annually on importation. Then came the import policy by the federal government. Now, to survive, the nation must learn to be self-sufficient. And so far, we are on the verge of achieving this through the intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders in support of local farmers and efforts of value chain entrepreneurs. Now, the goal of creating 10 million jobs in 5 years through 10 commodities is gradually being actualized. Let's buy Nigerian to grow Nigeria.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Deregulation, subsidy and fuel prices is the focus tonight, and like we said, when we return on this leg, we shall be looking at the tax governance component of deregulation, and so that I don't quote out of context, you permit me to do some reading to the script, and we shall be looking at issues of VAT remittances, and it says it might not witness any remarkable growth until the various issues plaguing the sector are addressed. Now, I would love Oyedele and Osage to address this one after the other, beginning with Oyedele. Companies in the downstream sector may have to witness more audit, investigative, and DEX reviews as the tax authorities seek to improve the level of compliance with the space. Also, in the light of the above, companies in this sector may proactively conduct tax audit readiness checks to ensure that they are up to date in respect of all tax compliance requirements. How do you interpret this?
Thank you very much. I think I want to quickly make a comment around the tweet about dominance, and I want to just say that we shouldn't worry too much about whether one player would dominate the space. We know that the NNPC and the federal government have been the only one running refineries, but we haven't refined anything. So we saw reports showing that we spent about 86 billion naira on refineries that refined nothing. So if you have private sector driving that, even if he's one dominant player, you have to remember that it's a value chain. So Dangote is not going to have filling station and start selling it, right? So which means everybody can have a space to play. And even if you think that the Nigerian space is saturated as an international market, cross the border and you can sell your product. Now to the issue of governance. So again, I'll say that it's all the players. It will not be fair to isolate the marketers. So you have from the NNPC, the production companies, the oil producing companies, you have the distribution, you have the marketers, you have, all other people within the entire ecosystem. So one thing is certain, because the price was regulated, a number of issues around taxes were muted. For example, based on the law, VAT is applicable on petroleum products. But if the price was regulated, there's no way you can add VAT to it. Government needs to decide at what point do you bring VAT. Should you bring VAT? If you bring VAT, what should you use the money to do? There are also issues to do with equalization. So you incur demurrage and then you have to transfer and transport the product from different parts to other parts of Nigeria, and you want the price to be the same. So other people pay a little bit more so that the transportation cost is subsidized for other people, and that creates a lot of inefficiency. And you also find that because the petroleum product at the pump is regulated and the price is fixed by government, sometimes the margin that the marketers in particular make is so small that they struggle to cover their operating costs. What that means is they don't have a viable business, they cannot invest to expand, and they do not have sufficient profits on which to pay company income tax to government. And we also need to always remember that this subsidy is not something that affects the federal government alone. It affects the finances of all levels of government, because this is money that would otherwise have been available to the federation account for sharing between the federal government, state and local government. And to that extent, it means that if you address this issue, you are helping all levels of government. Many of them that are struggling to pay salaries should be able to do that. And what we need to do is to ensure that we have safeguards and we all monitor the fact that what we have dealt with now, one, does not come back in any form or shape. I think we need to just allow this to go and not think about bringing the subsidy back, and nothing should be partial. It should be fully deregulated so you can allow that sector to freely expand. So for anyone who is trying to review their tax affairs, it will not be limited to whether you are a marketer or whether you are a producer or you are refining. Everyone needs to pay the right amount of tax, and if they haven't been doing that before, it's good to do the right thing. If you want to do a self-review, please go ahead and do that. The authorities should from time to time conduct their audits, which I believe they do regularly. The reason why those companies have to pay tax is not now because the price has been deregulated, it's because they were never exempted from tax anyway, and they needed to pay tax like the rest of us, and that has to be the case for everyone, including government-owned enterprises that are into business. They are equally liable to tax, and they need to be fully compliant in all manner of taxes, including company income tax if they have VAT to pay, and withholding tax on their vendors, they need to remit on time, and PAY, your personal income tax on their employees. So we have to start living the example of the country we want to be like. So the countries that we celebrate today, that our young people will go and give testimonies if they get visas to go there, are countries where they run the economy based on taxes. So taxes is the social contract between the people and the government, on which we have a binding arrangement for how we run our economy to the benefit of everyone.
Osage, let's get your perspective. Meaning, the Federal Inland Revenue Service is going to be at full blown in all this.
Yes, and we must congratulate the new chairman of the Inland Revenue Service, Federal Inland Revenue Service, Mohamed Nami. During this COVID-19, in partnership with the federal government, he reeled out many tax palliatives. Do you know that 60% of the tax base of federal revenue has gone? Because if you are making a profit, a turnover less than 25 million, you don't pay tax. It means all those people in Alaba market, in Ariara market, in Kano, those Kano businessmen, once you show an account, an audited account, that your turnover is below 25 million, you don't pay tax. You can only pay rates and levies. People didn't know this. And you know, because when we make noise, even this deregulation we are talking about, because government announced it, when they deregulated diesel, people didn't know. That of kerosene, they didn't even know. Only very few people, the elites, knew. But the common people, this thing done right, that is all. But this one, they made so much noise about it. If you look at the tax palliatives, under this regime, that is under NAMI, what they've put out, the concessions are so enormous. There was even a time I wrote an article and I described it as a tax overdose. I may not allow that, but they were very generous, to be fair to them. And the Finance Act 2019, they say there are lots of things that will help industries. So they should not be afraid of. Even this, we are talking of this petroleum, the increase in price which people will suffer in the short term. If you match it against the tax palliatives, it will be overwhelmed by the tax palliatives. A lot. Maybe people should just go and read it. It was published. A lot of palliatives. And we should know, like the one who talked of the deregulation, my fear, I was in accounting, I'm a chartered accountant, I practiced for many years, and I went to industry. After being in industry for 17 years, my perspective changed. I was speaking English before. Industry. I went into industry. Now I respect those with industries. Okoya, Eleganza, ask him for those companies again. Most of them are gone. Not because it was not efficient. First of all, you know, normally, even the common man, they know. Anything privately managed, there's private interest. When there's private interest, there's better efficiency, there's better productivity. You make more money, and you pay your staff well, and the government will tax. Look at the educational institutions, federal government institutions, especially the federal government unity schools. They were not as they were before. Now, if you look at schools now around Abuja now, all the government schools, the local government schools, they are so badly managed, but they have better they have more better qualified teachers than the rest. All those private schools you see making good results, fantastic results, because of the private interest of the proprietors. All those schools, this is like privatization. How can you be taking cocoa from Ecom? Ecom has the best species of cocoa in the world. In the world. Ecom, they have the best. They are third after Ondo and Nikiti. That's Cross River. E-commerce, they have. Then you now export it, the beans. You export it for over 100 years. You've been doing it. And they will now bring you chocolate. That price of chocolate will be 100 times the quantity. Because you say, what value did they add? No, they added value. But it's exaggerated in terms of the prices. So what we are saying is that technology is very... It was when I went into manufacturing and I knew what is technology. It will affect these refineries we are talking about. The private player may not have the money to, you know what it is to start up a refinery. And like what my colleague said, there's no fear. VAT is a consumption tax. You pay it without knowing. Withholding tax is deducted at source. The only thing is the payee. You pay to the state government. That one goes to the state government. So we must emphasize it. Now, let me give you all the factories in the Keja, you see in the Keja, most of them are gone. They are not churches. Not because they were not better money, because of the cost of sensitive spare parts and machines. NNPC, they were accumulating billions of losses every year. 240 billion in 10 months for many years. Because the turnaround maintenance, which they call TAM, they're so expensive. It's so expensive that they cannot fund it, and they are paying salaries. So that they will go. I pray the same thing will not return to this, because private investors will not come in. Neo-colonialism, they will not come in. Even the one in Benin, the modular refinery we are celebrating in Edo State, more than half of it is owned by foreigners. So they will come in. It will be the same thing. The Chinese will soon come in. They will come and play. Because you've allowed them, you've deregulated, they will come. So we have to be very careful. What that man asks for is very important. We must what? We must monitor it. So that we will not lose our independence, what we have to. foreign partners. That is one thing I know. So, as per on the tax, they've done a lot. This government of Buhari, hate him or like him, they've done a lot. The Financial Act 2019 and the tax palliative already this. If you look at it, it's so. The people in all of them, how many of them prefer accounts? Like NNPC, what were they doing before? They are self-accounting. What will happen? They have their own auditors. The Auditor General cannot go there. What they do, the same thing with the Central Bank. They have their own auditors, firm of auditors. What they do is that they take the report, the financial report, what they now take it to the Auditor General, comment. It's what they comment, they take to the National Assembly. That's all. So all those ones will stop. But my fear is that, like the power we are talking about, we have a ECN, Electric Company of Nigeria, we have NEPA. Now, they've been unbundled. Are we better off now in terms of payment for consumption of power? It's not. Because they thought it was easy. They were bidding for it. The skill, technical skill is not there. That is number one. It's not there. All those people they privatize and that bought those companies, they are finding it difficult to run them. To the extent that some people, OCT, Edo State, people are protesting on the street that they should go, that they want PACM back. But they were privatized. But it will fail because you lack the technical skill. All our trade centers are gone. Technical schools are gone. They are gone. Polytechnics are not well funded. It affected my industry, my factory. It affected them because you see a part, it's 10 million. If you don't buy it, the factory will close down. The same thing with Julius Berger. You see, how many people are competing with them now? Because a caterpillar, a bulldozer will cost 250 million. Where do you get the money from? And they are the ones selling it to you. They can inflate it. If you don't buy the factory, the will go down.
So back to the tax governance.
Yeah, the tax governance, that is what I'm saying is that. So because of the many players, many people players. And the thing is, unless you give tax holidays at the beginning, they may complain that they want tax holidays because they as pioneer companies. And that since they are just coming into the industry, they will ask for a lot of concessions, tax concessions. But in the end, in the long run, there will be many players and tax revenue will increase from them. First of all, and the government, in terms of this, we must congratulate the Federal Revenue Service for what they've done. Because if I were the one, I won't go as much as what they've gone, to the level where they've gone. So the thing is that it's good. But at the end, we now say that a lot of companies will emerge, modular refineries, Dangote refineries, they will pay tax. Tax revenue will increase. Tax revenue will increase. They will get a lot of revenue from it. That's in the long run. But in the initial stage, they will ask you for tax on this because it's very expensive to run an industry. The same thing with the textile factories in Kaduna. I audited of 6 of them. They died. I know why they died. It's technology. But most people don't know. Nigeria don't even talk about it. Even in our policies, when they talk in the National Assembly, you find that technology is very important. A Boeing 747 has 6.2 million parts. But people don't know. A Boeing 747, that was 10 years ago, a Boeing 747. So one year they said we want to manufacture aircraft in Nigeria. Because they don't know. 7.2 million parts for a Boeing 747. That is which people maybe cross river and Akwa Ibom. Each person will hold one.
One part.
Everybody will hold one part. So when you go to industry, you see the machines. They are very expensive. There was even one time we wanted to make a groove on a metal piece. And they are not talking of nanotechnology. A nano is a meter divided into 1 billion places. A meter like this divided into 1 billion places. You now have sub-nano. We wanted to make a groove in Calabar until you have to go to Japan because it has to be what? Tolerance limit. And to correct precision, you need a Mitsubishi spark erosion machine. It's not in Nigeria. You bring it and you pay over 20-something million for it. So I pray it will not affect the refineries because the ownership will differ. They will run from this thing. Like Julius Berger, they are in Nigeria. They said they have 40%. The Germans, they have 40% of this. Nigerians have 60%. But at the end, you see their profit and loss account they will give you, and maybe they've made 100 million. Is it because of 40% of 100 million you guys say? Because they know what they've made from what? From bringing in all those machineries, a lot of capital flight. So they will gain from it. So my fear is that the foreigners will not dominate. Once they dominate, what they do, the same thing is this telecommunication industries. We are not enjoying it. Though, luckily, when, like my colleague said, when MTN came, they were so overbearing. But when Glo now came, the thing softened. But now the thing is still high. Now, look at DSTV, the same thing. There's what? You pay for what you don't watch. If you buy it, if you pay for a bouquet in a month, you travel, when you come, it's finished. They announced it in the National Assembly that they're going to stop that, but it has not been stopped. Okay. So in tax, we are going to get more tax revenue, but not at the initial stage, because they will have to, if not, they will crumble. Technology is very key. It was when I went to manufacturing, I said,
okay,
yes.
Let's proceed. Now, we'll sustain the conversation when we come back after the next line of Vox Pop coming from two states. We'll be looking at how will Nigerians feel. How are they feeling? We'll be speaking to them. Maybe after now, they will get to understand these issues better. Let's take a Vox Pop from Oka.
The regime was just bankrupting Nigeria.
It's going to make the country to save more money, which ordinarily we have been wasting, that have been finding their ways into private pockets and all that. It would substantially help the economy.
You're hoping to invest on the infrastructure, on a lot of policies and programs that will impact on the people. If that is done, they need to tell us how much are they going to realize and where are they going to put these monies into to be able to impact on the generality of Nigerians.
We believe if managed very well, we'll get there. But at this starting point, everybody will feel the heat. But by the time other investors will come in and the market will be free, by so doing, you see there will be a competition. Then you have choice. You can choose from which company to buy your fuel. And if the market is competitive, automatically, as expected, the price will drop.
Removing the subsidy, ordinarily, if we are actually going to streamline or monitor in the real sense of it, or implement whatever comes from that subsidy for the good of the masses, that will be to the greater interest of the country, so they wouldn't be going to private hands.
They can be sincere as they promised, as they say that it has been removed and it will be reinvested in other sectors. Then, well, let's bear the burden, knowing that we'll benefit from it sometime.
And we take our last Vox Pop. Okay, the Vox Pop is not ready. If it is ready, we'll take it. If it's not, we'll leave that for tonight. Let's go to Tajuddin Akonde. But quickly, I hear there's a caller, our first caller tonight. Where is he calling from? Zaka is calling from Lagos. Hello, Zaka. You're on to Tuesday Live tonight. Hello? Hello, Zaka? Well, if Zaka is not on, we'll proceed with the program. When the call is through, we'll go back to it. Now, let's begin with Tajuddin Akonde. Tajuddin, at this stage, let's speak to Nigerians. We have done a jigsaw across the entire gamut of deregulation, the benefits if it's not regulated, and the tax governance. Now, let's speak to Nigerians. As this policy takes off fully, which way to go?
What I'll be saying to Nigerians is that for you to enjoy anything, the first thing you do is you suffer some pains. Everything that is good doesn't come easy. We need to reorientate ourselves to move away from looking for everything free. Nothing is free. Indirectly, you'll be paying for it one way or the other. When we had subsidy and all that, what we are paying for it is price of its inefficiency. So, my message to Nigerians is that let us look at the positive side of the policies. At the same time, let us be alive to our duty to ask questions from those that have put themselves forward to lead us, as I've said before. It's not that they'll save money and it's going to be distributed to people. No. The issue is, as we face the reality of having to pay more for petrol, for transportation, and other areas where prices will go up, because the truth is prices will go up, and we have seen increase in prices. Every time you have this kind of situation, you know, it triggers inflation.
Just to take another call here. Zaka is still on the line. Hello, Zaka. Zaka from Lagos, you are onto the line. Hello. Please, can we continue the conversation, please? Tajudeen, please conclude.
To the areas where we need them. In our own private life, in our own private affairs, let us also allocate whatever we have more efficiently, so that we block also the leakages in our own private spending. You know, what we have to doing is to see how we can key into employment opportunities that is likely to be created when the expected investment and growth in this sector begins to materialize.
As we have so much visibility about this whole thing, people don't seem to get it. Specifically, if you even saw some of the reports we played tonight, the drivers, the artisans, they seem not to have understood this. So how best can we give it visibility for people to really get it down the lowest step to understand what all this is all about?
Oh, okay.
So is that for me?
That's for you.
All right, thank you very much. I think one thing that governments in Nigeria across all levels don't do well enough is what I'll call communication and citizens engagement. So sometimes it doesn't matter whether your intentions are noble, it doesn't matter whether you mean well. If you don't communicate, you see people would receive it negatively, and therefore it makes the process of implementing a change like this to even be more difficult. So those of us who are privileged to have quality education and we can watch NTA and we can speak all this English that we're speaking are not in the majority. So we need to be aware that one citizen is not less important than the other just because they're uneducated or they don't have access to television or to the internet. What we then need to do is to customize our communication to be suitable to the audience that we are targeting. So let's take this communication to the marketplace. Let's take it to the street. Let's go to the Okada riders. Let's go to associations of people who are selling this and that. Let's connect with our people. Let's say this to them in the dialect that they understand. Let's say it on radio. Let's say it on TV. Let's say it on social media. Let's say it's town criers where they still have them. What we need to do is to use this as an opportunity to engage again with citizens, to let them know that this is not just about removing fuel subsidy. This is something much bigger than that. And let's even have a plan of what we'll do with these savings for, say, the next 5 years. Let's develop that plan. What areas are we going to be building roads? Where are we going to build schools? Where are we going to build hospitals? And publish it as a way of holding ourselves to account, so that this time next year we can come back to Nigerians and say, well, the sacrifice you made last year, here is the fruit of it, because we have now built this road, we have been able to send some kids who were less privileged to school and all of that. So that is the way I think it needs to work. Let's communicate effectively. And for those of us within our circles of influence, if you have friends and you understand this, communicate it to them, and please be balanced. So this is not about trying to promote government deregulation. This is just to say we're, talking about what is in the best interest of Nigeria. So let's all do this, not because we are supporting one government or we're against the government, but because we are supporting our country, because for many of us, this is the only place we can truly call home.
Let's take this call from Gabriel. Gabriel is calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Gabriel. Well, we lost the call from Gabriel. Our Twitter handle is still open. You can be part of the conversation tonight at Tuesday Live NTA. Osage, you heard the component from Akonde. You heard from Oyedele. Yes. He was specific at the very low level. Now, let's look at those who are supposed to drive the process. At times, some government policies come up and it's as though the person supposed to even push it down is not pushing it down the way it should go. How best? How well?
I think what it requires is firmness in governance. You have to be firm. People must be held accountable for any failure. And what I will expect is that this subsidy they've saved in trillions, how will it be better used? That's what we are asking them. It's a very difficult question, because one government will come, another government will go. Policies are abandoned midway, and a new government will come and do a different thing. Now, during PTF, Petroleum Trust Fund, we saved a lot of money. They budgeted what we made from oil. It was better managed. That this is what we are going to do with this money, this is what we are going to do with this money, this is what we are going to do. So they should map it out every year. That's the only way you can monitor it. Every year we are going to do this, we are going to build 36 standard cancer research centers, 36, so every infrastructure we need, workshops. There's one in Benin. Once there's no workshop in the place, you are gone. And it should be specified. Like PTF, the same head of state headed it, and it was efficiently managed with Rufus Giwa and Akpata, Chief Tayo Akpata. It was well managed, given to companies for specific projects, which we cannot identify. If they didn't do that, you won't see that money. The same now compared to what has happened in the Niger Delta. The money, a percentage of oil revenue was allocated to the Niger Delta. You can see the woeful mismanagement. Why? Because there was better governance. Now, the president just inherited this thing, and we must thank him for calling our attention to it. And now, the Niger Delta people are no more blaming the federal government now. There are people who wasted the money.
Let's take this call from Benin Kebbi.
Yes.
Umar is calling from Benin Kebbi. Hello, Umar. We lost that caller again. Okay, you can conclude, please.
So nobody is complaining. The Niger Delta people before they can't fight now. Why? Because they were humbled with what they saw. Roads. You just see a road. They just no survey, nothing. They just poured bitumen and tarred the road. And road rain has washed most of them. Those bridges have collapsed because there was no better. There was no good governance. But for PTF, though we may have a lot of misgivings, some misgivings, but it was better managed. So I will expect, because the money is in trillions, Once you've taken it from the people, but what we are saying with subsidy is that, look, you cannot buy this thing, it's too high. Because of a social good or of economic policy, I want to relieve you of burden. Mr. Man, Mr. Ojo, Mr. Chuku, Mr. Abdullah, look, I will pay subsidy. Since you are no more giving them, they must see what you've done it with. If you start like that, it will be difficult for the other government to change it. So we must monitor it, like what my colleague said. It has to, and two, there must be information management. He has repeated it many, and it's very key. You must inform the people of what you are doing. You are paying tax because of this. You are paying tax because of this. In Cross River, where I agree, everything, I will pay your tax. They continue to yes, they tell the people why you must pay tax. And people willingly, they were paying it. And the proceeds of this subsidy, this deregulation must go to the people. It's a very good question. If not, you won't see it. At the end, why not leave us where you met us? So that is the thing. So it must be monitored, and for specific projects. We can map them. We have 36 states. We can map them out, list them, and get people to manage and to oversee them. Hospitals, good schools, and other critical infrastructure.
Okay. Now, before we conclude, I began by giving a summary saying 63 years after the discovery of crude oil, the Nigerian downstream sector is still plagued by the problems of petroleum products, pricing, refining, storage, marketing, and distribution. And rather than get somewhere, it is still evolving. Also ranked 13th largest crude oil producer in the world, with an average output of 2 million barrels per day, we still have the problems of inappropriate product pricing, building product supply, insecurity, irregular gas supply, pipeline vandalism, name it. So as a way of saying our last thoughts for this program, holistically, proactively, and imagine we are not going to talk about this anymore maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, what's your last thoughts for everybody involved in this, the players, the consumers, the people, the government, beginning with Tajuddin Akonde?
Ultimate solution to this problem will be for us to have efficient refineries. Because what has caused this problem is a combination of the fact that we are not refining, we ship crude, and we import petrol. And that transaction, that flow, there is the impact of foreign exchange, which we seem not to have control over. First, we have no control over the price of crude oil in the international market. The fact that we are not refining, we ship out, and when we are bringing back the refined product, we also, in addition to the cost of the product itself, there is also the cost of shipping, carriage, and all that. If we refine, since we produce crude oil here, if we are refining, the first thing we are cutting out is the exchange exposure in terms of foreign exchange fluctuation that is impacting. Just like we have said today, if the price of crude oil goes up by just $10 per barrel, if it comes down, I want to say, if it comes down and your exchange rate goes up, you are still not going to have a lower price. So let's localize, since God has blessed us with crude oil, and building refinery is not an impossibility. Whether it takes 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we want to do the traditional big refinery or these new modular refineries, we must find a way to ensure that the crude that we produce here, we refine it here and we distribute. You recall we have 4 refineries, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, and 1 in Kaduna. I'm going to use the Kaduna. Now, today, I doubt if any of those 4 is functioning at any level of efficiency. The Kaduna one, for example, it is because of taking out the transportation cost of refined product. Because The one in Port Harcourt, you can understand why it is there. The one in Warri, you can understand. But in Kaduna, what we were doing was to pump crude into pipeline, which takes the crude to Kaduna, is refined in Kaduna and distributed in the north. When that was happening, when these refineries were working, the issue of bridging the price of petrol, because you import, everything comes to the port in Lagos, then you ship to Maiduguri, and you want the man in Lagos to pay the same pump price with the man in Maiduguri. Somebody, apart from the subsidy of your landing cost is more than the pump price, you are also subsidizing internally the cost, the equalization of the price across the nation. So,
Are you ready to take on the next line of thoughts? Because we don't have all the time. So, Taiwo Oyodele, let's hear your own closing thoughts. Is Taiwo there? Taiwo, can we hear your own closing thoughts?
Yes, certainly. Let me start with government. I'll say my closing thoughts for government will be that I think that the trust between the people and government is very low, and government needs to start taking steps to start building that trust back. The reason why every decision and action of government is sometimes received negatively is because people have lost trust. They think that if they make the sacrifice for the savings, for the fuel subsidy, it will be wasted, because every time you see issues around corruption, if it's not NDDC, it will be, money for feeding school children that is in private account. Those things kill trust. We have to do more to be able to demonstrate to the people that at the end of the day, the sacrifice will be worthwhile. Then next will be for the various investors and players within that sector across the patch. On one hand, I would say this is an indication that indeed Nigeria is open for investment. So we know that there have been various licenses for refining that hasn't taken off. So this is the time for investors to come in, both domestic and international investors. Less people invest. But I would also say that for those people, because they are mostly private sector people, they need to do business responsibly. Do not extort the people. It's okay for you to recover your costs and make decent profit, but do not take advantage of people. And even in terms of the quality of product, let it be that the grade of refined product that we'll get and that we'll buy and put in our vehicles is not the one that will damage them or the ones that will pollute the environment. Whatever was good quality that is appropriate in the US, in Europe, we should not have a lower standard in Nigeria, because we deserve the best. And my last point would be to Nigerians. I'll say Nigerians should not lose hope. The fact that the situation is bad does not mean we all say, you know what, let's make it even worse. No, we have to think about how can we make it better. And I think the mindset and the mentality that our people are poor and therefore we must artificially hold prices down so they can afford it doesn't work. A plate of a decent meal in New York will cost you maybe about $20. In Abuja here, maybe it will cost you $2, but many people still can't afford the $2. Why don't we change our mindset to say we want to make prosperity commonplace to our people, so that regardless of whatever the market price might be, they'll be able to afford it. So, and ultimately, let's hold government to account, because it is about our country.
Thank you so much, Taiwo Oyodele. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. And quickly also to Tajuddin Akonde. Gentlemen, we enjoyed your thoughts and we believe your message has cut across the landscape of the country. Thank you so much. And back here, let me quickly thank Oluwole Osage Jacobs. It was nice having you on the program tonight. Yeah. Because we want to talk, I will not allow you to speak for the last, but thank you so much for being on Tuesday Live tonight. But before we go quickly, latest report from NCDC shows that Nigeria has recorded 180 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Of the number, Lagos has the highest number with 41, followed by Rivers State with 19, while Plateau and Akwa Ibom states recorded 1 case each. This brings the total confirmed cases to 59,583, discharged 551,308, with 1,113 deaths. That's the update from NCDC, and that brings us to the end of the program tonight. We looked at deregulation in Nigeria, and we believe you enjoyed the program. Thanks for your tweets, and for those who made their calls, I couldn't produce all our fault. Thanks so much on behalf of all of us. Bye-bye.